Go team.
That's gonna be the intro.
What?
You drumming on your belly.
You doing this? You're doing the intro?
Yes.
Okay. Are we already
Hello
recording?
again.
Oh, hi.
To all our friends.
Hello.
Our fun and learning never ends. That's from Barney.
Wow. I just put that together right now.
Anyways, welcome back to UNSAID, and we are your hosts. I'm Gus.
I'm Ilse.
That sounded so weird.
Yes.
And I'm gonna read it verbatim how I put it in,
Okay, perfect.
in a post, because it just makes it awkward and very vulnerable. You'll see why I said that in a little bit. UNSAID is a space to have the, this is a mouthful, a space to have the conversations we never had to talk about the things.
No, you gotta try that again.
UNSAID, it's a space to have the conversations we never had to talk about the things you wish we would have said.
See, it's long, I told you. You can do it. I believe in you. The things.
To talk about it's just a waste of time. People are gonna stop watching. Okay, to talk about the things.
Oh man, the things you wish you would have said before you left.
Yes, thank you.
There you go.
I don't know why I'm laughing. I just thought it was hilarious when Ilse read it out loud. and yeah, pro tip, take her pro tip. Read things out loud before you post them.
Accurate.
Today, we have a very interesting conversation, and it was literally just a conversation.
Yeah.
The awesome thing is that we just get to put the camera, press record, and talk. And really, we were talking about what we were going to talk about, and that planning session ended up being our subject today.
Yep.
And today's topic or subject, or the things that we want to talk about right now, is laying down some terms, defining some terms that we'll eventually start using in these conversations, and also terms that people in our friend circle might be using, or young believers might be using. And the word is vulnerable.
Yeah.
Or in another way, vulnerability. Like, what does that even mean? What does it look like? Is there a place for it? And can I see it in the scripture? Should it be something that I do? And if so, with who? And how do I walk this out? And a term that I use is like bulldozer. Like, there's bulldozer people, and there's those people who actually are like wise about how they are vulnerable, who they're vulnerable with, and about what.
Yeah.
And at what time. You know what I mean? Again, this is a planning session that was recorded even before this intro.
Yeah.
And so we hope you enjoy today's conversation on vulnerability, defining terms.
It's gonna be good.
I thought that was good.
That was good. I think it was good.
So yeah, one of the topics I think would be crucial to talk about, again, defining terms,
Yeah.
as we step into more and more of these things, these episodes, before you so sadly leave us, is vulnerability. Like, what it is, why do we even want it? Do we really want it? Can we see it in scripture? You know, like, I just think like there's so many like words that get tossed around in maybe like in our friend circle, in this young generation of believers.
Yeah.
Like, let's be raw, or let's be real, let's be honest, like, please be honest with me, or
Yeah.
let's get vulnerable, like, you know. Or when people say, like, somebody wrote it on our live yesterday, I love your vulnerability. It's like, what, you know,
What does
like,
that mean?
what, yeah, why do we use these words? What do they mean? And what, or better said, what do we mean when we say them? You know, I don't know if you have some thoughts like that. That could be a, ooh, Jesus, that is not
Accident.
a good thing. Lord help them.
Oh man.
Oh God, that was a bad
That
accident.
was really bad. Yeah, I think that we could start by defining vulnerability, what it is, and also what it's not, because I think, like, I know people, or maybe I've been the person who, like, isn't vulnerable like to share something that's on their heart, but is more like, I feel like vulnerability is like kind of uncovering, like taking off your mask, you know, saying like, I'm not going to show up as anything.
Wasn't there like a deep quote that you gave us once on vulnerability?
Did I?
I think it was you.
Was it me? I like quotes. That's possible.
Or was it someone else? I can't remember.
I know I watched Brene Brown's TED Talk about vulnerability. Have you seen that?
No.
It's really good. So she talks about she like studied shame for a long time, and then she studied vulnerability, and it led her into wanting to study wholeheartedness, or like people who are not living in shame, people who are like living fully kind of, and were able to overcome things.
Yeah.
And so she said that one of the key things that leads to people overcoming shame is vulnerability, because like shame thrives in secrecy, right? When
Right.
it's not shared,
Right.
when it's kind of underneath the surface. And so what removes shame is actually when you're willing to share your pain. And then when the other person that's actually listening to you isn't just like, oh man, that sucks, but like actually like empathizes with you and like normalizes what you're going through. And so she talked about vulnerability being like that true courage is vulnerability, because like the word courage is about being wholehearted. Like when you show up with your whole heart, you're not hiding.
You mean courage to take the mask off?
Just courage in general. Like courage is showing up somewhere like wholeheartedly. And being wholehearted means you don't hide parts of yourself, which I think is like the whole like it's not single-mindedness, it's like double-mindedness in the Bible, right? It's like the opposite of purity. Purity is being one thing, right?
Whole. Yeah. Integral, just one part.
Exactly.
One whole.
So I think purity and vulnerability are like two parts, like kind of like two sides of the same coin. Like,
okay. Yeah. You bring that up. That makes more sense.
Yeah.
Because we tend to be more compartmentalized, and I will decide what part you get to see today.
Exactly.
Rather than here's me.
Yeah.
Whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
Because that could be a mess for people.
Yeah.
Right? I think so.
Yeah, because vulnerability is saying like, I'm gonna show up with all of me. I'm not gonna hide or pretend that I'm okay when I'm not. I'm not gonna sugarcoat how I feel about things. And I think that's what people liked about our talk, is that we weren't sitting there tiptoeing. Like there was no tiptoeing. We were for sure like sensitive to what people were thinking and saying.
Yeah.
But we weren't sitting there like making less of what it was.
Right.
Yeah.
And on that note, like I mentioned it to somebody today I had a phone call with, and they were like, I really enjoyed it. It was amazing. I loved your vulnerability. That's what they said to me. And I was like, and that was when I was like, we need to talk about those words.
Yeah, what does that mean?
But I said to this person, I said, what did I say? Oh, I said, if I'm honest, I was like, they were asking me about the challenge about it. And I was like, it could have gone deeper. I said, but it might not have been the time for that. And by deeper, I meant like I was looking at the screen, my phone, as you were talking, and the name shows up of someone that I am, that I know that I've hurt by my immaturity and misleading them. Like not my misleading them to something false.
No, yeah.
But not leading them well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I gotta clear that up.
Yeah.
And I saw their name and they wrote something, and I was like, I could have said something there and but I didn't want, again, like I had to stray away from the temptation to, even at that point, it could hurt someone.
Yeah.
It could have hurt someone.
Totally.
And I'm like, and while we want to be honest and vulnerable, at what cost, like at the expense of whose life or whose heart and so on.
I think that's what I wanted to say. Like, we need to name the difference between like being vulnerable and like exposing. Like,
yes, yeah.
Because I mean, exposing ourselves, sure, but sometimes when we are talking about being vulnerable, we kind of spend 95% of the time like ranting about the other person, you know, like
Oh,
I
yeah.
felt hurt because they did and they were
Right.
and blah blah blah.
And people say on the other side of the table, thanks for being honest.
Yeah, and you're just like, that wasn't like, that was honest, sure,
Right.
but it's not honest unto healing. Like I think
Yes.
vulnerability is not about me making this about the other person, like
Correct,
they suck and that's why I am the way I
Right.
am, right? But it's about me owning like how I feel, because the hardest thing to do, the thing that takes the most courage, isn't blaming, it's actually admitting,
Taking responsibility.
yeah, or even just admitting like they hurt me,
Right. Yeah.
and it wasn't because they're this horrific person, it was because like I deeply cared about them, what they who they are deeply mattered to me.
Yes. That was
and
hard
that
for me.
hurt
In my own life, that was hard
yeah.
for me. Because I don't know, it was so many thoughts that crossed my mind when I was, and the only person I would say it to, which at the time I think it was safe.
Yeah.
It was just my wife.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that it was her, you know, because again, rather than be like that person or this, but it was hard because it came at my pride.
Mm-hmm.
It came at my. I don't want to admit that you have, in a sense, the upper
that
hand.
you have that power over my life to make me feel this way.
I hated it.
Or to like, no, I feel that. That's like my biggest obstacle to forgiveness has been admitting that other people mattered enough to me to hurt me that deeply. Especially when they have proven themselves to be like,
it was annoying,
horrible friends, or maybe like they were right, you know, other people were right about them, and I'd be like, no, like I don't want to admit that you hurt me because I don't want to make those people right. I don't want to give you that much importance. Like somehow retroactively, I don't want to give you that kind of power over my life. But the reality is, and I think that's the vulnerable part, is sharing, like not ranting like how much they suck or how much they hurt me, but actually like how much I hurt because they mattered. Yeah. Like that.
I think
is so hard.
I think the twisted part in this, again, I'm processing out loud, so forgive me for those words. But a twisted part could be what I've seen in some people who are close to me, is that they'll take people hurting them or the things that people do or say that hurt them, and they'll dismiss it because they say, no, they that didn't hurt, like I know that they love me. I know that
like justifying them.
Yes, and then they get to this point where like the mask has been removed for them, and they're like, wow, and all the junk comes to the surface, and they're like, that person, I cannot say that person loved me, you know, and then all of a sudden it turns into this, like,
that's me. I feel that
you're hurtful. I think you hated me more than you said you meant it, like more than you saying love me. I think your actions proved otherwise, all these things, and I've seen it in people. That wasn't me, and I think I would have ended up worse if that was me.
You. That was me for sure. I be in the interest of like wanting to show mercy, I over justified what people did to me.
Oh, I remember.
I like over rationalized and justified them and said, well, it's because of their story, it's because how they were raised, it's because blah blah blah. And I honestly think that was like some of that is true, like some of that is like, yes, like they have this story and blah blah blah, but I was using that as a mechanism to keep what they did separate from me. Like this didn't really happen to me because like it's not really about me, like it's not really like my issue, like I was not really involved, like it happened to me but it wasn't about me, so I can like distance myself from being the person who experienced this betrayal, because I can justify that, well, it's their story, it's how they were raised, it's whatever, but like in reality that wasn't helpful to me at that time because I wasn't admitting again how hurt I was, and how even though like it wasn't about me, it happened to me, like it hurt me, and so I was using that to like not make it as big of a deal, but in the end like I actually ended up prolonging my healing process because I didn't admit how deep the wound was for me.
Now what do you say to someone like me who I have found a few people, you being one of them, a few people who I could feel safe enough to say, hey, that actually hurt me. Now, again, I'm asking because I want to hear your thoughts on this, because our generation or our friend circle says and thinks, no, if you're gonna be vulnerable, you gotta be vulnerable with everybody. Everybody should know that it hurts. Like, and I have this thought where I'm like, I don't know if I could trust these things just yet with someone, because I don't know if they're in the same boat or a worse boat. Their boat's probably broken, and me saying this is gonna feed more into that. Rather than I feel peace and safe with so and so, with Ilse, my wife, and these people, and I could say this. It's still not easy to say. But I could say this, and hey, like, actually, that hurt me more than I admitted at the time.
No, I think that's maturity, you know? Like, it's kind of like the difference between processing my issues on Facebook and processing my issues with a friend. Like, I could put all of my feelings out there in the public for people to see.
Right.
But then, like, what's the point of that? Like, I'm just putting all my feelings out there because I think that they matter that much, or that, like, the world needs to know how I feel about things.
Right.
Or, like, I think healing happens in a relationship, which we heard over and over a million times. But I
don't know whether to cringe,
like,
or be like, yeah, you're right still.
But, like, healing and transformation.
For those of you listening, you know what we're talking about. Some of you.
we took an inner healing class, but that was like a slogan. But it's true. Like, healing can only happen in the context.
Let's just find different
of
words
like
for
safety.
It. There you go.
Like,
that's
you have to be safe to heal. Kind of like if you are physically sick, you go to a hospital.
Yes.
Right?
Yes,
or like, you know, if you're in an ICU, everything is disinfected, everyone's extra careful with you because you need intensive care. And I think when you are experiencing brokenness in your heart, you sometimes need a social ICU. Like, I need to be with people. Like, for example, when I walk through things, I knew there was people that if I shared, they would join me in being angry and accusing and like blaming, you know. And if I wanted that, like, sure, I could totally like go for that. But I didn't want that. I wanted to heal. So I went to people of prayer, like people who wouldn't necessarily tell me what would make me feel better in that moment, but people who would actually help me get to the root of the issue and not become bitter out of like my thing. And so it's people that I like walked with for a long time, and that even like I saw them handle their brokenness or like their pain really well, and I thought, like, I want to handle things how you handle them. You look like Jesus when you handle pain, so I want to look like you.
That's good.
When I handle my pain, you know.
That's good. Because I think the danger, again, and again, not to say that I haven't had these temptations, but a danger that I see in our day and time with. I have to back up, so it's gonna be. No worries. You want to go park somewhere in the shade while we finish? Yeah.
Well, let me just grab our coffee because we're here.
Oh, it's ready.
Yeah. I think it is.
So let me finish this thought, and then you can go grab the coffee. The danger of our of the days that we're living in is that I see people could be like bulldozers. Like I'm gonna be vulnerable and me and unapologetic about it, and who cares what happens to you as I do that. And I say that because people end up on this thought like, well, I'm just being vulnerable.
Or I'm just being honest.
I'm being raw. Like what's wrong with that? Do you I've been hurt by that. Being Don't raw? Say that to me. I'm just kidding. You're not like me being raw or honest. No. Like, and that's the danger, because it's like, do people just want to be vulnerable for vulnerability's sake? And I think maybe this is a different subject now on another day. Is they don't want accountability for that vulnerability. That's true. Well, there's this feeling of like, I'm taking the step to be honest. That should be enough for you. Exactly. Like I wasn't honest before, and I would hide my stuff. And now that I'm being honest, you shouldn't just shut me down. By telling me that I'm wrong. And I'm like, well, I thought you were sharing with me because like you wanted to heal, and like healing looks like, maybe you don't have to be mad at this person for 20 years. Okay, you don't, like, you know. And so then there's this feeling of like, how dare you give me feedback on my vulnerability. So I think that there's also like a how to listen well when somebody's being vulnerable that we can talk about at some point, because there's a place for just like listening and hearing and making space for pain. But then there's also the space of, okay, do you want to heal, or do you just want me to hear you out? Because there's like
it's two different postures. Oh, wow.
Hey everyone, thank you again for joining us today on this episode on vulnerability. Again, literally, it was only a conversation.
Yeah.
It was a planning session.
Yeah.
And with that being said,
so we want to, obviously, if this is something you're interested in hearing more about, we would love to get your input on what, like, maybe we touched on a point that you want to hear more about, or maybe we didn't talk about something that you think is important to bring to the table in the conversation about vulnerability. So you can comment on this video, or you can submit a request on our website, unsaidby.me, and let us know where we should go next with this conversation about vulnerability, or if there's another term that you think we need to define.
The one that I brought up could be it. I don't know, you could let us know. Accountability.
Mm-hmm.
About accountability in vulnerability.
Yeah.
Right? Or how do we deal with bulldozer people?
Yeah. So anything, or like I brought up listening well. I have never been the best at listening to people when they share the truth about what's going on with them. So let's talk about that.
And lastly, I hope this doesn't sound bad for us, but we have no agenda other than having these conversations. Like, our end goal is obviously pointing every single person to Jesus.
Yeah.
And how these things could give us a conversation to talk about with Him. But by having no agenda, I mean we are open ears. So if there's something you want to talk about, if there's something you want to share that you would like for us to address anonymously, we're happy to do that as well, which will eventually because we have some emails or some people who have already wrote into us to talk about.
Yeah.
Awesome. So again, your host, Gus and Ilse, this is Unsaid, and we will see you next week. Love you guys.
Love you. See you.
Anyways, this is Chelsea's.
Yeah, Better Homemade sponsor. I'm just kidding.
This is sponsored and brought to you by Better Homemade.
The hand sanitizer.
Hand sanitizer.
Through quarantine.
That gets Selena through quarantine.
Perfect.